2.5 years ago, you would have been 100. They used to divide policing, and I'll start by saying, I'm not knocking the people ahead of me, there's always different ways to do things. The way they used to do it was, there were 4 districts, if they got 40 officers, 10 went to each. Proportionally, around the city. That's how they did it, just proportionally around the city. There's nothing inherently bad about that. When we took over, we switched to a different system. Instead of just going proportional, we looked at where the crime trends were happening and where the violence was happening. Since then, you have 30 to 50% more police officers in the south and the west than in the east and the north. All right, you have 100% of every new recruit comes out, starts in the south and the west. Every single one. The east and the north get none, they start in the south and the west until they learn here, and then maybe down the road we'll switch a couple of them to the east and the north. We have foot posts and overtime foot posts. There are 11, this is a new thing we're doing. There are 11 here in the south, there are another 13 in the west, there are 3 in the east and 3 in the north. Everything's cut. Now those posts, if we can't fill them with people because we're short-handed on people, we actually pay officers overtime to get out there and work. And it's part of what the mayor talked about, where we have a problem getting our numbers up, and we're trying to be creative about how we can get more presence out on the street while we're building the police department back to where it was. But it's all aimed here. Now there's some problems with that. Those officers out on the post, you just nailed one of them. They're not stopping in to see the store people. We just had a meeting about that this morning. And we're going to a program under the chief of patrol. We're going to a program where the officers are actually not only going to be going in and introducing themselves, they're going to be asking the storekeeper to certify that for them. Yes, I met. Now it's up to them. If they don't want to,
that's great.
If they don't want to, because a lot of them don't, it's fine. We just want him to go in, speak to the people on his post, and then be able to turn in written proof to the sergeant at the end of what he's doing for a while. We're also, and I don't like to talk too much about what we're doing, but I mean, it's a good group. We're changing the time. We've been having them come in about 4, going to 12 whenever we could. Lately in the snowstorm, I didn't have them because the weather was not conducive, but now it's getting warm and starting again. We're probably going to move that up so that they're available for the school dismissals. So that they come out, they're there with the school dismissals, they can help the school crossing guards, they can help the teachers at the schools. That was a suggestion that actually came from some of the cops out in the street that we said this morning, that's a great idea, let's do that. So we're going to move them up to be doing that. But you'll be seeing them out there all summer. We have 80 officers in the academy now. There are 3 different academies. As the mayor said, we go all around and try to get seats for these officers. Little problem with that. We send them to these county academies. Those counties are not like Jersey City.
Can you at least share with us those posts?
Yeah, oh yeah, sure. We can do that. Share with where yours are in the south. I'm sorry, I'd like to mention, I don't have all 40-something,
Yeah, right now with the walkmen we have and women, we're focusing on MLK and Ocean. And we basically broke down Ocean and MLK into 4 components, 4 parts of MLK, 4 parts of Ocean. And then we assigned 2 officers to a walking post to cover each post. And what we're telling them to do is, number 1, keep any groups from forming on the corners. Not as easy as it sounds. It's just not as easy as it sounds. If someone can come up with a solution to get these, and they're not just kids, these young adults, these old adults, from hanging out on the corners, and that would help us tremendously. If we get the family involved, the churches involved, where they could go out to these groups and say, don't become a target, don't be someone who's going to do something bad, get off the corners. That would help us tremendously. Right now, what we're seeing is as we're walking up and down MLK, Ocean, we start to push the problem down to the side streets. So until we get to, it's all about resources and manpower. Everything we brought up about the stores, they've been going to the stores on MLK, on Ocean. We're focusing on learning on these corners, in these neighborhoods. Who are the good kids? Who are the bad kids? Focus on the bad kids, obviously. When 6 or 7, when I tell my young officers, when there's 8 guys on the corner, they're not all bad. You got 1 or 2 real hardcore guys. We have to identify that person. We have to focus on that person. The ones that we can divert to other programs, whether it's the PAL, whether it's some recreation program, try to talk to them. But we're at the infancy stage. We're just really getting this going now, and we're moving forward with it. Like I said, it's very important. We have 70 additional officers by the end of the summer. I hope we'll get a large majority in the south and west like we've been. And we'll be able to expand the program so that officers will have smaller posts, so they'll get to know the neighborhood real good. They'll get to know the store owners, the people, the problems, and then, we'll work together to solve those problems.
If I just add, that's only one component, okay? There's 2 couple others, since we haven't brought them up, I'm going to mention them. The ceasefire unit, which we established 2 years ago, responds to every confirmed shots fired, whatever. We work with Newark and Patterson. We all work together at a crime center. They have the ballistics checks there, all the rest. We try to solve every single one, which didn't used to be done because we try to prevent the next one. So they showed us what they show up to the ones in the past. We also have a task force working with the Hudson County Prosecutor's Office, where we're trying to do exactly what she referred to, which is prevent the next one. We're trying to identify the people that Capilano just spoke about, the people that are aggressively creating this violence, because there's usually one or two that are right at the heart of it, and they're the ones really pushing the other kids, the younger kids, into it. The mayor always, we talk about last December, right after we had that bad violence spike, there was a weekend where we made 16 arrests for guns and recovered 12 guns. Half of them were juveniles. The juveniles aren't the bad ones, the guys with them. You know, that one gentleman was walking that we arrested. He had been shot twice this year. He had been arrested for guns 3 times. And here he is walking with a 15-year-old carrying a gun. You know he was going to make that 15-year-old do something bad, or he was taking him in the wrong way. So we're targeting all those people with the Hudson County Prosecutor's Office on board, working with us, identifying the people. We're not pushing anybody to do anything wrong, but these are the people who consistently, their names are coming up in these. I'll be honest with you. There was a depressing, we just had, in the last fall, we had a bad spike of violence. A couple bad people got out of jail and really pushed it. But all of our victims, it was depressingly familiar. They were all right here from Jersey City, not from anywhere else. They all grew up here. Most of them were shot within 3 or 4 blocks of the house they lived in their entire life. They all had previous connections to guns. They had all been arrested for carrying guns, or they had been shot in the past, or they had been arrested for shooting at somebody in the past. So it's the same group of people that are going around that are plaguing this neighborhood, and we're aiming at those. Now, finally, our final component, working with the U.S. Attorney's Office that got us some money for this, is what we're calling Project Safe Neighborhood. Project Safe Neighborhood has 2 components. One of them is making those contacts that you mentioned, getting out, talking to people, not in an enforcement way, not clear the corner, just talk to people. Go to an ATM and just speak to people as they come in. Go to a store and speak to people. And we're actually counting that and reporting it with Rutgers University. We're counting how often we do it from month to month, so we can see, are we doing a good or bad job? Because I'll be the first to tell you, like I just talked about, a cop made a point to me on how we should change the hours. I don't get everything right. We try it, we look at it, we move. So we're working with Rutgers so they can tell us whether we're doing a good or bad job, where we can improve. The second component is we have a social worker working with a detective, reaching out to our at-risk people. By at-risk, I don't mean the people that are about to do the next shooting. I mean the people around him that are about to, his brother, his cousins, the people that will get sucked into this, but they're not in there yet. So if we have a victim of a shooting, we now send this social worker out to talk to the people in that circle and to say, can we give you, is there any services we can provide? Can we help you with the health department, mental health training, job training? Is there anybody at risk? We speak to a mother. Do you think that your other kids are going to get involved in a retaliation? It's not the ceasefire you read about in Boston. It's actually going out there. She's not a cop. She's under no obligation to say anything anybody tells her. It's just, can we give these services to people? We're finding very resistant. Okay, we have 21 cases of people, young men, that we were able to refer to places to get help in one way or another. I'm not going to talk about why, because that's their business. But we had 21 what we call clients that accepted. We've contacted over 150 people to get those 21. But even those 21, most of them circled back to us. Most of them said no initially, but they circled back when they got a chance and somebody came in and talked to us. So we're doing that, and we're also working with Rutgers and the U.S. Attorney to collect the data on that and see, is it working or are we wasting our time? If we're wasting our time, we'll try something else. But it seems like, from speaking to the detective and the social worker doing it, it seems like there's some work that's happening and that we can expand on there. So we're not just looking at one aspect of the violence, which is tough problem. If we look at it one way, we'll never solve it. We're trying to come at it from a whole bunch of different ways, some of which we have not done as well as we'd like, and we're going to keep changing up and moving on it. And thank you for your suggestion about the stores, because again, we were just talking about that this morning, and moving on. It's a great idea.
As I say that, because the response time seems like it's increasing when it should be actually shrinking. I put a call out twice, and the response time for someone to come out to take a look at the incidents that would impact the business was well over 25 minutes. That's not acceptable.
So the reason that some of this response time goes down is because of the walking posts go up. They work adversely, right? So when we have less cars out there, obviously the response time becomes slower because they're on walking posts. The walking posts we started last summer, And I'd be the first to tell you, I mean, we've had many conversations that there's a lot of components of it that I didn't like initially. They were hanging out together on the corners. We didn't like the way that they were interacting with people and all of that stuff. It's taken a long time, and we're still far from kind of in a place where we feel good about it. I mean, the fact that you reaffirm it, that's the reason why we started
That's
this
okay, I
thing.
went right out and talked to him myself.
So this is
Tell
the
me why
reason.
he ain't coming in here.
This is the reason why we're having them check in with the
Right.
store owners now, so
Right.
that there's some degree of accountability actually on the walking post on where they're actually going, so we can actually see that they're interacting with people, because we weren't happy with the way that was ultimately working. The goal, our timetable is really to get this perfect for when the warmer weather comes in the summer and the spring. So that's kind of our goal and really working on it. We spent a lot on overtime already for the first part of this year, because we're trying to fill posts of police officers specifically on walking posts. So we've escalated the overtime, as he touched on. It's a bigger line item in the budget for that reason. So, yes, and then yes, and yes.
A related question to that issue. How locked in is the city with regards to the union contract of having police officers, a valuable resource, babysitting all these construction jobs? I drive down to Jersey City, downtown, and I see 5 or 6 police officers standing there doing nothing and babysitting, reading the paper, playing with their phones. These are police officers that can be used to address some of these issues.
Okay, so his question, to repeat it, was about police officers working construction sites, that we'll see them, particularly downtown, working at a construction site, and it's frustrating for you, because these could be police officers outside. That encapsulates it? Okay. So none of those police officers are on duty working for the Jersey City Police Department in the capacity of their shift. It is no different than you working Monday through Friday and then deciding on Saturday or Sunday to do something supplemental to their income. They are not part of the regular shift. It is additional income to them, off-duty jobs, meaning that they are off-duty. None of them are part of the normal manpower shift, is the reason they do that. What?
Why are they wearing the Jersey City?
They wear the Jersey City uniform because that is part of Jersey City regulations ultimately, as they're either conducting traffic, which is what they are supposed to be doing. They're not always doing that, but they should be, and making sure that safety follows at those respective sites. It is a sore spot for a lot of people, because a lot of residents don't understand that that is not their taxpayers paying for those police officers. They're doing it entirely on their own time. Entirely on their own time. So it's their day off that they are deciding to work one of those construction jobs, which by Jersey City law, for safety reasons, depending on the size of the project, requires a certain number of police officers there. That's ultimately what's happening.
So who's paying for it?
The private developer is paying for it. The contractor is paying for that ultimately, and the city has a small administrative fee that we take because we administer the program ultimately. Yes. Yes.
On a much lighter note, I want to thank you for the City Bike program. I think it's terrific. It's good for the environment, good for people, and for our health and everything else. But the number of stations,
I'll repeat the question, Dan.
but the number of stations in Greenville is almost none. I think we have 3 or something like that. Is there any way we can get a station put in at the Danforth light rail, so that people don't have to drive to the light rail and have their spouses pick them up and that sort of thing?
Okay, her question was, first she said that she likes City Bike, it's environmentally friendly, it's healthy, it's a good thing. She gave a compliment, thank you very much. And then she asked about expansion, particularly in Greenville, because she said there's only 3 located in Greenville. Okay, so from the beginning of the City Bike situation, when I got into office, I thought a bike share was a good way to link different parts of the city together. And we came together with Hoboken, Weehawken, and Jersey City coming together to have a joint program. Quickly, we had different goals for the program, and that partnership between Hoboken, Weehawken, and Jersey City fell apart. Hoboken felt it was a priority to have more bikes, cheaper bikes. I felt it was a priority to be able linking City Bike in New York with our system into a larger one-pass system that is for the entire region. So that was the difference of priority. We raised the $2 million, private dollars, to create what you have as far as City Bike. Motivate, which is the company that did it, they placed a priority on only servicing one part of the city. This goes back to what the gentleman said in the back regarding different parts of the city. So if you think about the way these city bikes started in different cities, when they started in New York, they only had it in Manhattan. They didn't put it into any of the outer boroughs. The reason that they do that is because they try to put it into one area to create critical mass and then slowly build it. They would argue that when they did it in San Francisco, when they did it in Miami, when they've done it in New York City, that is the only way it has been successful. We argued aggressively, saying that we would sooner install City Bike nowhere in the city, and I'll just walk away from the $2 million that I raised if you only think that you're going to put it downtown. It has to have in every single part of the city putting it together. That was a battle back and forth that I don't think none of you would know about really, but ultimately they gave in and they said, okay. So thus you have representation in every area. We set goals for what the ridership would be by the end of this year. We've eclipsed every single goal that we have on membership and ridership, and in the spring there'll be another 20 stations going in. Again, those 20 stations will be citywide. Danforth, if that's your priority at the light rail down here, we'll have to work with Frank. I will put it in. I have no problem with that, and I can commit to that. Okay?
One follow-up question?
Yes.
I think I couldn't be here with, I'm a fan of yours, I'm a fan of the administration and the JCPD. The 2 times in my 20 years in Greenville that I've needed them, there was an amazing response and professionalism. But the guy who got dragged out of here because he was going to be disruptive, he should have been allowed to be disruptive before he was dragged out. That is the American way. I had to get that off my chest.
Fair point. Fair point.